Africa's economic growth is deeply tied to its SMEs. They are the backbone of industries and the unseen forces of supply chains. They are also key drivers of employment across the continent. But many of these businesses still struggle to access finance to scale up. Why is that so? What makes risk assessment of SMEs so difficult? And how can financial institutions and investors better understand these businesses that fuel Africa's economy? On today's episode, we have Jumoke Adekanmi, Moneda's Chief Risk Officer, who has designed a world-class risk architecture specifically for African SMEs. Jumoke, welcome.
Thank you, Favor, for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
So Jumoke, I would like to know, when assessing an SME, what are the key factors risk professionals usually consider?
Okay, so first off, you look at the financial risks, their earnings, you want to look at their growth, you want to look at their stability. You also want to look at operational risk. You want to look at key man risk. You want to look at how they're able to attract and retain talent. You want to look at their resilience. You want to see if they can build a sustainable business. You want to look at governance. What's their board composition like? How is decision making done in the organization usually? This is what people typically look at. But the question now is, does it work for SMEs in Africa? And from what we can see, the answer to that is no.
So I hear there are a lot of factors that you have to consider, or every risk professional will have to consider. But I would like to know, what are the common misconceptions around this area?
So you see, because of all these risks that I've identified, when people see SMEs, what they see is a red flag.
When people see an SME, particularly traditional finance, banks and whatnot, when they see an SME, they see a big walking red flag.
But the way risk management is, it's a two-edged thing. Is either you see risk threats or you see opportunities. And most times when people see SMEs, what they see are the threats. They don't consider the fact that there are also opportunities in partnering with SMEs. They don't consider the fact that the reason why these SMEs look like a red flag is because they've not been given the opportunities that they should be given. Is because they're not operating in an environment that is enabling, that helps them to scale, that helps them to grow. So people look at SMEs and they just see a red flag. People look at SMEs and they see defaults, but that is also a misconception because SMEs are a lot. And even looking at it from a portfolio point of view, it's better that you give 2 billion to 100 SMEs than to give it to one corporate. Because if something happens to that, the whole thing is gone. But it is very unlikely that whatever it is that you have given to 100 SMEs will be lost at the same time. So when people see SMEs, they see a red flag, they see default. But I think that is a misconception.
It's been over 4 years at Moneda as a Chief Risk Officer. What do you see are the real issues SMEs face, and which is different from the perceptions?
What I would say really is access to affordable and realistic financing. So when I say affordable, it means that financing that will not kill their business. You remember we were looking at the financials of someone, and then we saw that their financing costs completely eroded their profitability and all that. So access to affordable financing, that's one. And then financing that is realistic. We are not telling someone that needs some money to go and bring a house somewhere as collateral.
So it's just a perception of risk. Even those that are able to get to the door, when they get to the door, they are asked to provide collateral, that is of the value of the amount they are looking to access. Perhaps a house in Banana Island or Camps Bay in Cape Town.
And all that. The focus should not really be on collateral. And also cash flow challenges. Because of the way SMEs are structured, they don't really have access to spontaneous finance. And when I say spontaneous financing, it means that their suppliers do not want to give them credits. Their off-takers will take from them and don't want to pay on time. The financiers are giving them money at a rate that is not affordable and requesting for collateral that is not available. So really, for me, I think that's the major risk that they face. That's the major issue that SMEs face.
Then this is a really fundamental problem then for majority of SMEs.
Absolutely.
Especially in Africa.
Absolutely.
But I'm sure from your experience, there is a model that works. There's something that is actually working. So can you walk us through and how it works?
Okay, thank you for that question. The Moneda model is the one where we don't just provide financing and go to sleep waiting for you to come and repay. We understand your business. That's the most important. We understand your business. If it's something that we've done before, it's fine. If it's something we've not done before, we would learn it because we have to understand your business so we can add value to you. So what the Moneda model does is look at the transaction that you need funding for in its own merits. I'm not considering the fact that you're an SME, you have collateral, you don't have collateral. I'm not really looking at the typical risks that we'll look at. But what we do is we look at the transaction in its own merit. Is it profitable? Have you done it before? Do you have the track record? Have you done it before? Can we work with you? And all that. What are the merits of this transaction? And how can we add value to you? So we handhold you. That's really what I think is the game changer for SME financing in Africa.
Okay, so this is much more than financial data. This is more of holding the business and let's walk through this together.
Totally, completely.
And this has worked over time?
It has worked over time. I was in banking for 15 years before I joined Moneda. And the kind of model that Moneda has run and the kind of results that we have gotten, there are no banks that have gotten.
That's very interesting. So if I'm to summarize the model you just told me is it's not just putting every company in a box, but it's understanding the company and fitting it into its own box.
Exactly. If there has to be a box.
There has to be a box.
If there has to be a box. Understand the business, understand how you can add value to the business, and then partner with them to provide them not just with capital, but also with technical capacity. That's why we have our own in-house project managers, we have our own in-house engineers that would look at every transaction in its own merits, understand the transaction, and understand how we can bring value to the business.
I think that is very interesting because this seems to be a major flaw for other financial institutions where they just give you the money and do whatever you like to do.
And come for your house when you can't pay.
True. Okay. So from all you've said, it seems like Africa's economic growth is tied to this SME. So is there a better way for this risk assessment to be carried out?
I would correct you on something. And Africa's economic growth is not tied to the SMEs. Africa's economic growth is the SMEs.
Okay.
It's that we get it right or we get it right. And I'll give you this, I would explain this anomaly to you. 30% of the world's natural resources are found in Africa. 18.6% of the world's population are in Africa. But guess what? Africa is only responsible for 2.4% of the world's output.
Wow.
That is an anomaly. And why? It's because when we see SMEs, we see risk, and then we have neglected them. SMEs are the backbone. We have neglected our backbone. That is why, with all our resources, with all our population, our output is minimal. What we need to do is customize a risk management framework that understands our unique challenges, that understands our operating environment, and helps us to work with these SMEs. Imagine if you had 100 Monedas all over Africa, providing partnership in both finance and technical support. Just imagine what the ripple effect of that would be. So we need to sit down and customize a risk assessment that is not imported. You know, we do a lot of importing.
True.
A risk management assessment of these SMEs that is not imported, that can move us from 2.4% to something significantly higher.
Okay, so I've learned so much from our conversation today. I've seen that it's not just about numbers, it's more of sustainability, it's more of execution, and coming into the realities of doing business in Africa is unique to us, peculiar to us. So what? Do you have any final thoughts on this?
So my final thoughts would be risk management is about threats and opportunities. I think for SMEs in Africa, we are focused on the threats for too long. We need to move to the era of positive risk management, positive risk taking, where we look at the opportunities and we don't see these SMEs for what they are now, but we see them for what they can become. And this is not child's play. It is hard work. It is a lot of hard work because you have to be able to understand them. You have to be able to add value to them. So I just think that's what we need to move to in Africa. Customize a risk management framework that takes into consideration our unique challenges, unique operating environment, and then look beyond threats, look at the opportunities. When you see an SME, don't see a red flag. See what the SME can become when you add value to them consistently by providing not just finance, but technical support.
And we must be ready for the hard work.
We are always ready.
All right. Thank you so much, Jumoke. This was a very insightful conversation.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And to our audience, what do you think about African SME risk assessment? Don't forget to follow Moneda for more in-depth conversations such as this. Until then, keep pushing, keep building, and let's keep shaping Africa's future together. Bye.